everybody, it's Linda. Welcome back to Tips for You. Well, I have some parenting tips to share with you today. And it's going to be how we can increase the chances that our children will be successful in life. And I don't mean just monetarily successful, in their career choice. I mean in life. I mean to be the best person or the best version of themselves that they can be. How do we ensure that? Are there skills that we can teach our children? Well, I believe there are, and I believe these skills have to be cultivated when the children are young. These are habits that you can instill in your children that will help sway the results in your favor, that your children will be successful. I have two very successful children, both in their careers and in their lives. They're very happy, they're self-confident, and they're wonderful, caring people. And I look back over the years, and several things stood out to me as important in how they felt about themselves and the motivation that they would have later on when they went to school and when they chose careers. And I want to share those with you today. I hope that you'll find them helpful, and let me know in the comments below what you think. Please take a moment to subscribe to my channel for helpful tips on beauty, fitness, healthy lifestyle, natural remedies, and so much more. And the first one I want to talk about is to cultivate willpower in your children. And by that I mean that you cultivate a sense of motivation to do things and complete things. Because not everything everyone has to do in life is fun. We're all motivated to do fun things for ourselves. But sometimes there are tasks that need to be done that are not fun. We want our children to stick with something. We want them to follow through. We want them to keep going, to keep trying, to keep learning. But that takes willpower. It takes some determination. How do you instill that in your child? Well, there are ways that you can do that, and they start very small. So when your child is small and you put a puzzle in front of them, for example, try to make sure that whatever task you give a child, they learn to complete it. That they don't get frustrated and give up. That you try to work with them and teach them patience to try to put something together. If there's any frustration, calm the child down and recomplete the puzzle. Try to get them to work on it. Try to get through the frustration and let them get excited about doing it again. Come on now, we can do this. Speak soothing. Don't let them think that they're defeated. Children have a small attention span. They kind of want to run off to the next thing. Try to teach them how to focus in, how to stick with something. And it starts from very small things. How to just play with something for a little bit longer than they play with something else. Those are small little cognitive things that a child is learning right from the very beginning that will be carried through life whenever they are faced with a project, an assignment, or a job responsibility. Another great way you can teach young children willpower and completion of tasks is whenever you read a book to them, be sure you complete the entire book. Close it upon completion so they know you're done, and talk about it for a few minutes in a positive and enjoyable way. And when they get older and they have homework assignments, asking your children to complete their assignments before they go and do something else that they enjoy is a good way to instill them getting their work done before they go off and do anything. Some children just do not learn discipline. They don't learn how to focus. They start to get distracted and they go on to other things. They go back to something that's back and forth, and it can be very difficult to complete a task, and they become procrastinators. But if you stay with them and try to work with them and try to tell them, okay, let's get through this, let's finish this. Sometimes it's challenging, and other times they'll learn to just snap through it very quickly, and then they can go on and do what they want. Sometimes when children come home from school, they have a lot of pent-up energy from sitting in a classroom all day. Sometimes it's great to just let them get that out, run around a little bit, have a snack, and then sit down and do your work. And then you can go off and do what you want, something that you enjoy. But that doesn't mean you rush through and do a sloppy job with the task that you're given with your homework. You have to put some effort into it, so you have to take a look at what they've completed. a lot of parenting is to stay on top of your children and to be there and to watch and to see if there's any frustration so that you can help smooth it over. Because learning is a process, and if they start to get frustrated with learning, they're not going to develop pride in learning or enjoyment in learning. Children need to develop a pride and enjoyment in learning, and it has to come from within. I know quite a few parents who used to just pay their children to get good grades. Studies show that once you take away the monetary award or whatever reward you're promising to get something done, the child's grades will fall and the homework assignments will not get done. So you have to instill a sense of pride and enjoyment in learning. And you do that by building their self-confidence, helping them when they get to a point that they don't understand something, working them through the obstacles, helping them be successful in an assignment brings about the confidence for more learning. If they get frustrated and they fall behind, they often feel like giving up. Early learning has to be a very positive experience for children. There has to be a lot of praise, positive affirmations. That's my next point. Parents have a tendency to recognize the negative and to speak to their children about the bad things that are going on, and they don't say anything about the good things that are going on. And it's very easy to get into that habit because you just go about your daily life and you don't say anything when everything's fine, but when you notice bad behavior, you say, okay, now cut that out. But what you need to do is pay also close attention to the good behavior. And you have to constantly reward that kind of behavior, but not with, gifts and toys and things like that, but verbally. Just praise. Praise a job well done, especially if you have a defiant child or you have a child that's struggling in school. If they bring home an assignment that they completed or a test and it wasn't up to par, my first question would be, did you study? And if they studied, I would say, well, did you do your best? And if they said, yes, they did their best, well, then that's all that they can do. That's all that they can do. And you have to pay close attention because not all children learn the same way. Our educational system is set up that, a teacher teaches, you learn through books and listening. And not all children learn that way. There are children who learn by doing. They are very observant children and they have to handle something and it has to be tangible and they learn by practice. And those children have a very hard time in school. The school doesn't have a path very often for those children. The doers, the ones who need to work hands-on, who grow up, and many of them like to go into trade and like to fix things or work on remodeling things or those kids are sometimes just not able to grasp and listen. They get bored and they're not tuned into that kind of learning. You have to recognize that about your child. Perhaps there is some of that in yourself. And you have to find a way to teach the child the things they need to learn, but perhaps in a way that they can physically accept doing it. I remember when my son was having a little trouble learning all the countries in Africa, and he was not motivated to learn it. And he just, had this test coming up, and, I think he was like in 3rd or 4th grade. So we made a game out of it. We named every country some little name. Like, I remember there was like Little Niger, and there was like, we started making kind of like little action figure names for all the countries. And while we were looking at where the placement was, well, I have to tell you, he scored a perfect score on that test after struggling with even wanting to study for it. So if you find a creative way to help them digest the information, then you can often get excellent results, and the child builds self-confidence that way, and it's an opportunity for you to give positive affirmation. Because as we learn as we grow older, and I'm a huge believer in positive affirmations, telling yourself positive affirmations can change your life. And if you guard what you take into your mind each and every day and keep it positive and keep the negative out, you can accomplish so much. And if you've learned the will and the motivation to stick with something, and you couple that with your positive feelings of accomplishment and self-confidence that you built over years, well then you've got a recipe for success. Okay? I think another important thing that children need to learn when they're young that will help them be successful is self-discipline. Children are born, they're babies, they learn that they cry, mommy comes running, she takes care of your needs, your diaper, your clothing, she's there, she's attentive, right? And daddy, right there to give you all the love and support that you need. So children grow up thinking that every time they cry or throw a tantrum or demand something, that they're entitled to get it. And if you don't teach them early on that you're old enough now to learn to wait, and that you have to either wait for it or work for it in life in order to get what you want, if they don't learn that, they have a hard time. They have to learn that. And it starts when they're very small. If you see your child beginning to throw a tantrum every time they want something and they're acting infantile, and I don't mean when they have a new baby in the house, because I remember my daughter suddenly acting like a baby when, she was 3 years old because I had a new baby. I don't mean that. I mean where they become rather spoiled and demanding and want everything immediately and think that you've got to bring it to them immediately. And they become impatient in life because they want everything yesterday. That's how people become that way. They get every little need satisfied. The moment it's not, they have no patience and they explode. So they need to learn to be patient. They need to learn some discipline. They need to learn to wait for things. And they need to learn to work for things. Teaching your children that they can work for something, that they have to do chores in order to get an allowance, that they have to have a job in the summertime to contribute a little bit to their college education. All of these things teach a person that they have to work in order to attain what they want in life. And it starts at a very young age. And they have to be patient, okay? Because success is rewarded over time and effort. You have to put in the time and you have to put in the effort if you want to be successful. And you need some goals, okay? You need to plan and you need to take steps. And they don't have to be big steps. They can be baby steps. But they have to be in the right direction. And you have to believe in yourself. And all of that comes from a foundation of strength that's put into place when you're a very young person, when you're a child, and you learn and you watch your parents and you see, are they comfortable? Are they satisfied with their lives and their roles? Are they practicing self-awareness? Are they always trying to do better? Are they trying to improve themselves and learn different things? You don't realize how much of the parenting qualities that you pick up from your parents until you have your own children. And I was really lucky to have wonderful parents. Were they perfect? No. Is any parent perfect? No. Is there an authority on raising children? No, there really isn't. I'm no authority. You're no authority. We learn as we go along. But there are skills, I think, that can make a difference. Unfortunately, in our society, we don't have, a lot of families don't have grandparents around to help you with the raising of your children, instilling all of these values that they've learned over the years. And if children do have their grandparents close by and they can learn from them, I think it's such a blessing because they have so much wisdom to share. And I was lucky, I had an older father who was 48 when I was born, so I got the benefits and the wisdom of so many generations as I was growing up. Was he a little out of touch with the younger generation? Oh yeah, he was, but my mom was younger. So, she caught me up on that kind of a thing. And, what you don't learn at home, there's plenty to learn in the media about what's going on in pop culture or with your friends. But the real foundational things, the principles that guide you through life, those are the ones that you learn in your home, through your family and your loved ones. So the next skill I'd like to mention is that you try to teach your children the skill of acceptance. Accept when they have a failure. Accept when something doesn't go their way, despite how hard they tried. They have to learn that life has some disappointments, but use it as a growth opportunity, an opportunity for them to learn. And teach them that these are opportunities for you to learn. Don't be upset. Okay, you did your best, you tell them. Use it as a teaching lesson. Explore ideas with them and how maybe things could have been different if something else was done differently. Ask them if there are some obstacles that they could have avoided had they done something different. Use it as a basis for communication, for learning from their mistakes, if the mistakes were avoidable or not. Everything is a teaching lesson with children. And if you're there listening and observing them, you can really see it happening. You can watch when their moods change, or when they're not happy about something, or there's something going on at school. It's not easy to grow up. It really isn't. And the teenage years, puberty, that's such a challenge. And if you can remember how it was for you, with your own body and your own life, and put yourself in their shoes, then you can really empathize. Many times, everybody forgets how it was, but you've got to put yourself in their place, and you've got to give them the skills necessary to make tough decisions. I mean, there are a lot of tough social decisions that children have to make. And if you think about it, they're so young when they have to make these sometimes life-important decisions. Sometimes decisions that they make that are not good decisions can affect the rest of their lives. So they're pretty heavy. We don't have to let them think that they're pretty heavy decisions, but what we can do is just give them the skills so that they feel confident in making their own independent choices. And I was always confident in my children that they would make the right choice in a situation that I thought might be detrimental for them, or a situation where I wouldn't want them to go along with the crowd. I had faith in their ability to discern right from wrong and what they should and shouldn't do. I worked with them when they were small, when they were young, exposing them to different ideas. You want them to be able to fly and to experience and to grow, but you want them grounded. You want them grounded in strength and a foundation of love and care, that they know they have a place that's safe for them, that they can tell their worries and their fears to you, and that they won't be judged, but they'll be helped, and that you can brainstorm together and find solutions, and that you can use your wisdom to help them to see the bigger picture, because you have their best interests in mind, and they know that. They know they can trust you. You are their parent. They can trust you above all else. They know the love is unconditional. Okay? So foster that communication. Keep those lines open. Ask questions. If you notice anything, don't be afraid to ask. I always tell my children, there's nothing you can't tell me. I've told them that since they were little kids. You will not shock me. You will not upset me. You will not disappoint me. Just tell me whatever it is that's bothering you. Okay? I've been around, I've lived, I've heard. There's nothing you can't tell me. And when you tell that to someone, then they feel like what they're about to tell you isn't so scary, because they, believe it or not, worry about what we think of them. They worry about, are we going to be disappointed if we hear this, or are we going to hold it against them? And they have to see that we're forgiving and that we love them no matter what. We have to demonstrate that. It's important that we demonstrate that so that they know. We can't just say it. All right? So when the chips are down, we have to be there, and we have to offer solutions, try to help them think of solutions on their own so that they have the coping mechanism and they develop resilience. If you don't develop resilience as you're growing up, you're not going to be able to develop it very easily as an adult. And you struggle. You know, every little wave or storm that comes and knocks into you, and you collapse. You have to ground yourself in your beliefs and stick to your own moral compass. And my final skill that I think is important to try to teach your children is to be good listeners. You learn far more by listening than you ever will by speaking. That's a given fact. So you can try to train your children to be good listeners. Try to help them develop the skills of listening. When you speak to them, be sure that you notice that they're paying attention. If you let your children get into the habit of not even looking at you and continuing to play a video game while you're trying to talk to them or teach them something, I can guarantee you they are not going to hear you. So teaching them to pay attention to you, to put down whatever they're doing, and to really listen. And you'll know someone's listening if they can repeat back to you what you said. So if you want to give them a little test and you're teaching them to be better listeners, you ask them, okay, what did I just tell you? And let them tell you back what it is that you just told them. And then you'll see whether they get it, because it'll show you that they were listening. You can teach them to be a good listener by being a good listener yourself. When they're speaking, don't interrupt them. Don't do something else yourself that's distracting and you're not paying attention, because they learn to do the same thing that you do. So if they see that's how you act, that you don't look at them when you're on the cell phone and you're playing video games or whatever you're doing and they're trying to tell you something, then they'll learn that from you. So if you want them to be good listeners, then you have to practice being a good listener in front of them. Let them finish their sentences and make sure they let you finish your sentences, that they don't interrupt, that you tell them, mommy is speaking or daddy is speaking, let me finish. Let them develop patience, like I told you, and discipline, okay? Because that's all part of being impatient. They want to just, talk right at you and run away. You have to stop them and slow them down and ask them to please say its sentences and use their words. If you can teach children to learn to use their words and to communicate, oftentimes they'll be much more well-adjusted adults, because communication is the key to almost every relationship. Even in business, you have to learn to communicate things. And if you can communicate things that bother you, you feel better. If you communicate how you feel to someone, you have a better relationship. Communication is so important. And it starts with your children when they're small and the relationship they have with their parents. How is that communication developed? Is there listening going on? Is there response? Are you asking questions? Further questions about what they're telling you. It shows you're interested. And then they can go into detail. When my kids used to come home from school, I used to ask them how their day was, and then they used to get into a little story, and I would ask more questions, and who's that, and their names of the people, and you get a feel for their world, and you can understand what they're going through, and you can develop a connection with them that way. And that connection builds love and trust. Anyone who listens to you and empathizes with you, you will trust and you will love. And as a parent, our role is set up to empathize and listen and build trust with our children. Okay, we want that dialogue, because if you have that dialogue with your children, then they can get the benefit of your wisdom and you can teach them so much. All right, they can learn. And when it comes to making those decisions, those tough decisions as they get older, they have a way to reason and they can make those tough choices. And they don't have to rely so much on their friends for approval and for acceptance. Because you know why? Because at home they have that. They have approval, they have acceptance, they have love, they have compassion, they have empathy, and they won't have to go get it elsewhere. And that gives them the strength to say, no thank you, that's not for me. Or no thank you, you're my friend and I care about you, but I don't want to do everything that you do if I'm not comfortable with it. It teaches independence. So I hope you found this video helpful. I hope that my sharing some of my parenting tips that I thought were helpful over the years will help you in raising your children. Here is a quick recap of the skills I mentioned in this video that can increase the chances that your children will be successful in life. So if you like this video, please leave me a thumbs up to let me know. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe, because I have a lot more to come, something of interest to everyone. And please visit me at my blogspot where I do a lot of writing. And I'm also on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, so we can stay connected there as well. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your tuning in. Bye-bye now.